Hello, my name is Kathy, and today I'll be continuing the music composition portion of the music theory material. But before I do, I wanted to tell you that I have a great many videos now on many different topics, and so I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easier to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. Before you begin this section, it's important that you go through all of the basics of theory playlist material, as well as the music arranging material. You have learned a great deal about music composition already from the basics of theory playlist material and the music arranging material. And now we will move on to learning how to take an original musical idea and develop it into a piece of music. Let's talk for a little bit about musical forms. Every piece of music has an overall plan or structure, and this is called the form of a piece of music. Musical forms offer a great range of complexity that you can use when composing your own works. It is easy to recognize and grasp the form of some things because they are small and simple, or they're repetitive. Other forms are easy to understand because they are so familiar. As we learned from our explorations of the development of a musical idea, letters can be used to label the form of any piece of music, from the simplest to the most complex. Each major section of the music composition is labeled with a letter. For example, the first section is the section A. If the second section, or third or fourth, is exactly the same as the first, it is also labeled A. If it is very much like the A section, but with some important differences, it can be labeled A with an apostrophe following it, and it's called A prime. The A prime section can also show up later in the piece, or yet another variation of A, which is indicated by A with two apostrophes, and it's called A double prime, and it can show up and so on. The first major section of the piece that is very different from A is labeled B, and other sections that are like it can be labeled B, B prime, B double prime, and so on. Sections that are not like A or B are labeled C, and so on. When composing your sections, A, B, or C, it's helpful to have a bit of a guideline. Generally speaking, if you have an A, B, A prime format, part A is generally fast in tempo, part B is generally slow in tempo, and part A prime returns to the same tempo as the original part A, but with embellishments to provide a nice contrast. Or, if you compose a slow part A, then part B would be of a quicker tempo, and the part A prime would return to the original slower tempo with embellishments. Basically, you're trying to add interest to your overall composition by including these contrasting elements. Also, if your part A is basically major sounding, then part B would modulate or change its basic key to either a minor or a relative major key. Basically, something quite different. Part A prime would then return to the same key and tempo as part A. Once again, these are just guidelines and not hard and fast rules. Just have fun with this and know that what sounds good to you is what's right in the end. Often a musical form becomes so popular with composers that it's given a name. For example, if a piece of music is called a theme and variations, it is expected to have an overall plan quite different from a piece called a rondo. Specifically, the theme and variation would follow an A, part A prime, A double prime, A triple prime plan, with each section being a new variation on the theme in the first section. A rondo follows an A, B, A, C-A plan, with a familiar section returning in between new sections of music. It is important to remember that forms are not sets of rules that composers are required to follow. Some symphonies don't have silence between movements, and some don't use the sonata form in any of their movements. Plenty of marches have been written that don't have a trio section, and the development section of a sonata movement can take unexpected turns. And hybrid forms like the sonato rondo can become popular with some composers. Whether a piece of music is a march, a sonata, or a theme and variations, the composer is always free to experiment with the overall architecture of the piece. Some common musical forms. Through composed, one section, usually not very long, that does not contain any large repetitions. If a short piece includes repeated phrases, it may be classified by the structure of its phrases. Strophic, composed of verses. The music has repeated sections with fairly small changes and may or may not include a refrain. A refrain is a line or lines that are repeated in music or in poetry, the chorus of a song. Variations. One section repeated many times. Most commonly, the melody remains recognizable in each section, and the underlying harmonic structure remains basically the same, but big changes in rhythm, tempo, or timbre keep each section sounding fresh and interesting. Jazz standard song form. Jazz utilizes many different forms, but one very common form is closely related to the variation form, a chord progression in A-A-B-A form, with the B section called the bridge, is repeated many times. On the first and last repetition, the melody is played or sung, and soloists improvise during the other repetitions. The overall form or verse-like repetition, with the melody played only the first and final times, and improvisations on the other repetitions, is very common in jazz, even when the A-A-B-A song form is not being used. Rondo. One section returns repeatedly with a section of new music before each return. A-B-A-C-A, sometimes A-B-A-C-A-B-A. Dance forms. Dance forms usually consist of repeated sections, so there is plenty of music to dance to, with each section containing a set number of measures, often 4, 8, 16, or 32, that fits the dance steps. Some very structured dance forms, the minuet for example, are associated even with particular phrase structures and harmonic progressions within each section. Binary form. Two different main sections, A, B, commonly in Western classical music. The A section will move away from the tonic with a strong cadence in another key, and the B section will move back and end strongly in the tonic. Ternary form. Three main sections, usually A-B-A or A-B-A prime. Sonata form. May also be called sonato allegro or first movement form. It is in fact often found in the first movement of a sonata, but it has been an extremely popular form with many well-known composers, and so can be found anywhere from the first movement of a quartet to the final movement of a symphony. In this relatively complex form, too complex to outline here, repetition and development of melodic themes within a framework of expected key changes allows the composer to create a long movement that is unified enough that it makes sense to the listener, but varied enough that it does not get boring. I have a great many videos now on many different topics, and so I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easier to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. Well, that's it for now. To stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this free YouTube channel by clicking the red subscribe button right below this video. Take care.